John, appreciate you joined us. Thank you so much for your time. Well, moving on, President Donald Trump is ramping up pressure on Ukraine, and Russia could walk away from peace talks if there is no immediate. Let us hear to.
Now, if for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that. And Marco is right in saying we want to see it end. Think of it. Every day, a lot of people are being killed as we talk about, as they play games. So we're not gonna take that, and we'll see. I think we have a good chance of solving it.
Secretary Rubio said that the U.S. will have to figure out whether a deal can be done between Russia and Ukraine in a matter of days, or you will just move on.
Yeah, very short.
How many days is that?
No specific number of days, but quickly. We want to get it done. We're talking about here people dying. We're talking about over there people are dying also.
Meanwhile, Ukraine and Russia are expected to carry out a new prisoner exchange. According to media reports, both sides are set to exchange 246 prisoners each, including 46 injured soldiers. The United Arab Emirates is set to be mediating the swap. This would mark the 63rd prisoner exchange since the full-scale war began. The last swap took place on the 19th of March when 175 Ukrainian soldiers were returned home. And in a major development, the Trump administration is reportedly considering recognizing Russian control of Crimea as part of a broader peace proposal. That's according to a U.S. official familiar with the negotiations. Crimea has been under Russian occupation since 2014, and 4 other regions, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, remain partially occupied following Russia's 2022 invasion. There's been no official response from Kyiv so far, but Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has previously called recognition of occupied territories a red line, insisting Ukraine will not cede any of its land. All right, Ross Feingold, political risk analyst, is joining us at this point in time from Taipei. Ross, once again, a pleasure having you. Well, it's going to be a big problem if these peace negotiations. In fact, these were some of the good terms on which Donald Trump was basing his presidency. What do you think is going to happen if the Americans decide to wash their hands off of these negotiations and this truce?
If the United States of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, it's going to fall to other parties to try and pick up that role. Now, that could be the Western Europeans, although that's unlikely because they've been such staunch supporters of Ukraine. It could be the United Arab Emirates, which, as you mentioned, has brokered the most recent prisoner exchange. It could be the Omanis, who've been brokering the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks. So there are a number of candidates who could pick up that role if the United States moves out. But it certainly would be a big setback. Obviously, for the United States to broker a ceasefire, regardless of how long that ceasefire would last, would give us some optimism that there could be a solution to the war. And if a new country has to step in and take that role, it would certainly be a big setback.
Well, it is going to be a setback. There are other countries, Ross, that are pitching in when it comes to any kind of a negotiation, or even for that matter, these prisoner swap campaigns that are happening at this point in time. But what, according to you, is going to be that one Rubicon moment where both these parties will sit across a table and in fact declare that this war is over? Putin is not ceding. Vladimir Zelensky is obviously of the opinion that his territory has been ceded. They were the first ones to be attacked. How do you find any kind of a middle ground between these emotions?
Some kind of middle ground would have to involve Ukraine recognizing that, at least for the present time and the near term, that part of its sovereign territory is going to be occupied by Russia. It's just so unlikely that Russia is going to agree to turn over any of the territory it occupies to Ukraine. So Ukraine doesn't have to recognize Russia's sovereignty, but they're going to have to accept the reality that there's going to be a ceasefire line, and behind the line is going to be Ukrainian territory that's occupied by Russia. Otherwise, it's very unlikely that there could be any type of short-term or even a long-term ceasefire. From Russia's perspective, it's very clear that something they want, besides the recognition of Russia holding Ukrainian territory, they want sanctions relief. And it's not a surprise at all, given the effect that it has on Russia's economy, that Russia is seeking sanctions relief. The United States, under President Trump, seems willing to grant that in part to Russia. The Western Europeans seem to be against sanctions relief, but Russia is going to insist on some kind of potentially even a large-scale sanctions relief before it would agree to a ceasefire.
Ross, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for